Shanghai GDG is a very interesting developer community.
I'm glad somebody has asked this question.
This is where the magic happens.
This is primarily a question and answer show. So if any of you out there would like to ask questions.
Shanghai GDG is a very interesting developer community.
To Google Apps Script Office Hours. I'm Jan and this is Eric. Just a note before we get started, if you're in the Hangout, join with us. In just a few minutes we'll actually bring you in. We're trying out something new today, so if you're in the Hangout right now you probably won't be able to actually participate for a few more minutes. So what we're going to cover today, we have some few questions on our moderator page. We can take some live questions from those of you in the Hangouts, and then we're also going to do some quick little reviews of some of the web apps created with AppScript that we've come across in the Chrome Web Store. Okay, so Eric, do you want to get started with the questions that we have in moderator?
Yeah, sure. So, office hours for people who are new. This is a time really for us to just talk about AppScript as well as answer your questions. So if you have questions during the week that aren't getting addressed, feel free to bring them up right now. And the moderator here is for people who can't make it live or who just don't feel like asking on the air. So to get started, one of the ones we have at the top is there an AppScript to receive email notifications whenever a collaborator edits a text document? That's definitely one of the things that people use AppScript for, doing automatic sending of emails and interacting with their Google Drive. So I think this is right in the sweet spot of Google AppScript. I'm not sure I've seen a script that does this use case exactly. Have you run across one?
I haven't seen anything for a text document, if by that you mean plain text as opposed to a Google document. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that we have, for example, like an event today or a way to determine has somebody edited a text document.
Yeah.
It's something we've had a lot of feature requests for.
I think the best guess of what you could probably do is using triggers, set up a trigger that runs at a certain interval, let's say every 5 minutes, mm-hmm. and checks the last edited date, the last updated date of something in your drive, right, using the docs.list API, docs.list service. If you did that, it's not like the instant they made the edit, but at least within 5 minutes or so, you could probably determine, has it updated since the last time I checked?
That's a good point.
If you put that together, actually, you don't think it would be that much work to put that together, and it would make definitely a good app. So
what I'm not sure is whether or not you'd be able to pull who the collaborator was that made the last edit. I'm not sure if that's exposed in the API or not, but it's worth looking into. And if you don't need that, then this technique could probably work for you.
You just need to know if it changed at all.
Right.
Yeah, that could work.
And this could work.
All right, great. The next one we have here is I'm trying to use AppScript to archive selected Gmails. My company doesn't want to enable IMAP, and so AppScript seems like it's a reasonable alternative. Can I invoke AppScript from a contextual gadget? If not, is a web service using AppScript possible? So have you seen people use contextual gadgets with AppScript before, Jan?
I don't know that that's supported, so I don't think so. I don't think that the Gmail contextual gadgets can currently work with AppScript.
Yeah, I looked into it briefly, and I think one of the limitations with AppScript today is you can't iframe it within some other context. So you cannot create an AppScript app and embed it into a web page or a contextual gadget. So I think that's going to limit a lot of the use cases for contextual gadgets today. Mm-hmm. I think theoretically using the content service to return JavaScript or JSON format that then some other JavaScript could parse. This is like at the fringes of what's possible, but I don't know if it's been explored really.
Yeah, that would be the best place to look. I think would be the content service. If you're not familiar with content service, it's a way of serving up content that is some sort of basically text-based content. So it could be XML, it could be RSS, it could just be text, it could be JSON, any of these types of things. So you can effectively kind of write your own web service, which is possibly what you're looking for here.
Yeah, and I think there could be some things. It uses redirects, which causes problems sometimes. The content service, also around authentication and making sure you're logged in when you're making that request.
Right.
I think there are some challenges there, but it's worth exploring.
Yeah. So if you're the person who entered this question and you try this out and you run into any trouble, or you have things that you wish the content service could do differently that would make solving this problem easier for you, let us know on the issue tracker, or if you're just having trouble, let us know on Stack Overflow, and we'll take a look.
That's a great suggestion. The next one we have here is related to ScriptDB, which is the built-in object store in Google AppScript. They want to know how unique are the IDs. So they already asked this question on Stack Overflow, great place to ask questions, and got some guesses from the community, but haven't exactly got a firm answer. So uniqueness, I think it's definitely unique within a current script, or within a script database, right?
Yeah, and we believe it should be unique, at least the way that AppScript works today. It should be unique globally as well, but I won't can't go so far as to say I can guarantee that will always be the case. So I think you are safe to assume that it's unique across that script.
Yeah, and I think it may always be a good idea if to just create your own identifier within your object. So you can use the scriptdb ID to get access to that record, but if this represents a record in some other system, or there's some other way of creating an ID, use your own ID in addition to the scriptdb ID. That gives you flexibility in the future to, let's say, clear out your scriptdb and repopulate it again. And if you repopulate it with your custom IDs that you're maintaining, then you don't need to worry about things getting wiped out. So you may not want to rely on the scriptdb ID for everything, although it can be useful at times. So another question we have here is related to Google Cloud Connect. I'm not familiar with this, are you?
I'm not either. My understanding is that it's a tool that allows you to sync some of your Google services with files in Windows, I believe.
Okay.
I haven't used it myself, so I'm not really able to answer this question.
Yeah,
right
so the
here.
question is going into syncing spreadsheets to an xlsx and an import button. The one thing I do know is we have had people ask, how can an app script, can I take a file and convert it into a Google spreadsheet, like take an Excel document and convert it into a Google spreadsheet? That's possible in the Drive UI, but I don't think it's possible via app script. I think you can do the upload, but it'll stay in its original format. It won't convert it. The conversion process, I don't think we expose in app script today.
Yeah, not programmatically.
Yeah.
So if you have questions specifically about Google Cloud Connect, my suggestion would be to try to find the support page or support link from the Cloud Connect, wherever you downloaded that tool. That would probably be your best bet. Off the top of my head, from the AppScript side, I'm really not sure.
Yeah. The next one we have here is that someone using what I'm assuming is the UI app to build a form with multiple fields, and they want to collect up all of that data into an array. And they before were using some sort of method based upon the name attribute, but now it's not working. Is there a fixed plan? Well, I'm actually not familiar with the specific problem. Have you come across this one yet?
Not this one. For the person who entered this, if you can link us, if there's something in the issue tracker related to this, or if there's not, if you could raise one, that would be really helpful for us to go back and try to correlate this with anything that our engineers are looking into. The name attribute, so there's the name and the ID attributes that you can use kind of in different scenarios to identify the different widgets on a form or a panel or things like that.
Yeah.
And they each serve a slightly different purpose. If they're not working, we definitely need to know about that. And I guess the question is,
how do you collect up multiples at once?
I see.
Yeah, because I mean, I think we've seen things where like checkboxes. I think typically in HTML you name them the same, but then give them different values, and then when you're collecting up, that name contains an array of all the values. That's just kind of what I feel like this person is doing.
Right. I think we need a little more details about what you're trying to accomplish. This would be actually a really good one for Stack Overflow. If you can give us some of the code that you're using and what's not working, we can try to point you towards a solution that will work. I know that it can be a little challenging to figure out an approach to handle the dynamically added elements when you don't already know all the names of the elements on your form before it's actually submitted. But there are solutions to that, so we can point you towards those if you can give us a little more details about what you're trying to do.
That's a good point. And so the last one I think we have here today is I would like to know the direction and plan on expanding or growing scriptdb. Well, scriptdb is certainly growing usage on its own. I think just the fact that it's launched and is useful, as we've seen people starting to go to it. I don't know if you have any other specific plans towards growing it.
So we do, basically, we have a roadmap for the plans of things that we want to add to it. It's not really in a form that we can share publicly right now. One thing I do want to point out is if you have specific requests, things that you'd like to see in scriptdb, things that you want, basically if there's certain areas you would like us to focus on, please do let us know. And the issue tracker, the feature requests there are the way to do that. That's definitely the best way to get kind of to the ears and eyes of our team. So do let us know.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the areas that I've heard some people already saying they want even more power with is querying. So to query scriptdb today, it uses a model called query by example, where you pass in a partial object that you want your results to match against.
Right.
And I think today, for instance, you can't do substring matching. So give me all of the objects where the field name contains the letter A. you can't do that kind of contains operation. It has to be either equal to A or not equal to A.
Right, so like and contains and those types of things.
Yeah, things that if you're using SQL, you may be familiar with today. So I think some of those kind of gaps have already been identified and are ones that we're already tracking. But if you have even more of those, that'd be great to let us know.
Yeah.
And it looks like we had another question or two come in since I was chatting. So one we have here is the session variable now available to access username email from non-domain accounts?
So without trying this just off the top of my head, I think that if you have an app that is published as a web app in the way that it is executing as the user rather than as the developer, then I believe you can get access to the username email of that user.
That's correct, yeah.
That's correct.
I think I tried that recently just to test it out.
And the reason that it's allowed in that case, the user is actually presented with some information, when they install that application, that it lets them know that this is something that's possible so that they can choose to authorize that application or not. So that would be the one case where for a non-Google Apps account, you can access that information.
Yeah, I think it's something people have been wanting for a long time. Is, who is this user running my application? And now, since they are presented the opportunity to say yes or no to this app, it allows you to get a little bit extra information.
Yeah, so this can be really powerful.
That's great. I think that's all the questions we have in our moderator so far. What do you want to jump to next?
Let's jump first to, I want to run through a couple mini reviews of some of the web apps we've come across in the Chrome Web Store that were built using AppScript, and then we can use the remaining time for any live questions that we have. So what I'm going to do is probably just run through these briefly. I'm not going to actually run the apps themselves in the interest of time, but I'll just show you four, and then if you want, you can check them out yourself in your own accounts. So DriveEye, first of all, this one is one, if you've watched the Google I/O videos or if you were at Google I/O for our sessions, DriveEye is kind of a sample application that we talked through in the presentation. So what it is basically a way to keep an eye on your Google Drive. So if you have a shared folder and you want to know whenever a collaborator has added files to that shared folder, you can choose to watch this folder in DriveEye, and it will notify you with email alerts anytime a collaborator adds a file to the folder.
Yeah. It actually kind of sounds almost a little similar to that question we had about watching for document changes.
Right.
Except this is more like folder additions, I guess.
Right. So instead of edits to a file, it's files added to a folder, but it's the same kind of concept. We've also had a lot of requests to have the source code for this sample app published, something that we're working on. So stay tuned. I think we'll try to add that probably in our tutorial section or somewhere like that, so that if you want to see how this app was created, you can do that. The next one we have here, Gmail Meter. So for some reason I'm not showing the video here. There should be a video when you look at the overview page. Gmail Meter has actually been around for a while. It's been in the script gallery, and it's kind of gotten a lot of attention on its own. It's a really fantastic tool for basically on the first day of every month, it will create an email that has all sorts of charts and stats about the email that you receive. So it's specific to your own inbox in Gmail, and I really enjoy using it because I like stats and numbers, and I like to take a look and see who am I sending email to and who's sending email to me and all of those sorts of things. So I find it really useful.
I think this is a great example of something that was in the Google Apps script gallery, which is something that's only usable in Google Spreadsheets, being promoted to really becoming a full web app in the Chrome Web Store. Right? This is not really a spreadsheet-based sort of a script. It's not there to manipulate cells or do, it's actually its own web app. And before it was kind of limited to that box, but since we have now this standalone scripts and the Chrome Web Store, it's really kind of allows scripts like this to become their own powerful tool, kind of separate from Google Spreadsheets. Right.
So, as the developer, this is getting the developer of this web app a lot more. It's more easily discoverable because you don't have to be within a Google spreadsheet to find it, and it's great for users too because they.
Yeah.
they can all check it out, and you can install it. When you install these, if you're not familiar with the Chrome Web Store, you'll get an icon on your new tab page, or you can also just launch it directly from here.
And so if you were out there and you've written a really awesome script in the script gallery, it may be worth taking just the half day it takes to kind of convert that into something that's appropriate for the Chrome Web Store,
Right.
and get a lot more eyeballs on it, a lot more useful functionality out of it.
Yeah, because there are quite a few scripts in the script gallery today that aren't really just spreadsheet extensions, if you think about it that way. Some of them are, and some things are custom functions, or some things are need to be a menu on a spreadsheet, but there's plenty of things which could easily be ported over to a web app and published in the Chrome Web Store. And if that's the case for something you've written, we strongly encourage you to do that. I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So moving on, so Gmail Print All for Chrome. This is another one that I like. So what this does is it will take a label that you've set up in Gmail, and then it will basically get all of the messages from the threads, I believe, and add those into a document and put it in your Google Drive. So it's a way to kind of get all of the emails, all the messages from all of the emails under a label, put them in a document so you can easily print them out.
Yeah.
Or just save them in that kind of long format for some other purpose.
Yeah, I think as the developer listed here, to do that in the UI, it's every thread print, you have to go. And I can imagine, like, let's say you are planning a wedding, right? It's go time. Today's the wedding. It'd be helpful to have every bit of communication on hand in one document that you can just refer to make sure that all the details that you've planned out are actually actually working. So I think something like this really is powerful.
And for travel planning for me, like when I have a trip and I have like my hotel reservation, I have all of this stuff. I may not even need to print it, but I want it all in one place where I can just pull it up and glance. It's kind of useful for that too. So the final one I want to look at, I actually just learned about this one. So Drive Forms, this is really interesting. So this allows you to build forms, and it's not a Google spreadsheet form, it's a separate kind of form. Using a template that you create in a Google document. So you would create this template that kind of is like a merged template. Then you would create the form using this web app, and then you can send it out, and it'll send it out to whoever you choose to email it to in PDF form. So that's also pretty useful. And again, it was created with AppScript. So
yeah,
these are some cool ones to check out. Have you used this one?
I remember trying it out once. I haven't actually used it like in a real world scenario yet, but I did try it out, and I was impressed at how powerful it is at reading in the different placeholders that you have on your document and creating form fields for them. It's really very nice that way. And it's kind of along the same lines of mail merge, some of the mail merge scripts people have seen and used in the past, but now it's standalone, and it works primarily around a document, which I think is a great way to kind of hold your template. Other mail merge scripts have you embedding it in the source code or putting in a spreadsheet cell, but actually creating a full Google document is a great way to allow you to do all the extra formatting you'd want to do.
Right. Cool. Okay, so now I think we can jump over and take any live questions that we might have.
All right.
Okay.
Hello, Hangout. Do we have any questions in the Hangout? Feel free to unmute and ask away.
Hey, please, can you open your chat? I think we have posted some questions there.
I have some questions in the chat. Unfortunately, I'm not logged into the
our
Hangout
micro is
chat
not
right
really good working. Thank you.
Not either.
Sure. All right. Well, one second. I can log into that chat in just a minute. We're trying a new format here today, which means that we're going to have a little bit of technical difficulties, but I think so far it's been going well.
Yeah, so while Eric's logging in to see the chat, does anyone else have any questions they want to ask live? And then we'll jump over to the chat in just a few minutes.
Okay, so maybe we can send directly. Do you have any news of the Google API form issue?
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing.
I can try to mess with the volume a little bit. Here, can you ask that again just a bit louder?
Sorry, it's maybe my microphone.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, here, try. Can you ask us again?
Is it better?
Yes, it's better for me.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any news from the fix you said you've done for the Google API form issue.
The Google API form issue?
Yeah, the process from function who doesn't work.
Okay, yes, I know what this is referring to. So if you're using the HTML service and you want to take a form that you have and submit it back into your server-side scripts, it used to be possible to take the whole form element and just pass it back. And that, unfortunately, this week or late last week broke and throws an error.
Okay.
So I know the engineer who is working on that, and it's something that's definitely in the pipeline, and that should be fixed really soon. I know that it should be coming out within hopefully the next couple of days. We've been looking into some workarounds, and there's not a lot of great ones at the moment, especially if you're uploading files, but it shouldn't be too much longer, we hope.
I have a question.
Sure.
Many of the scripts I've written are asking users to input HTML. Just curious, is the rich text editor ever going to work, or are there plans or even a way to present users an HTML editor?
So I think our recommendation, there was actually something in the issue tracker about this fairly recently. The rich text editor in UI app, I believe we don't have, it would be extremely complicated to get that up and running. But what we are recommending is instead to use the HTML service. There are quite a few jQuery-based rich text editor type solutions that you can do, and those should work fine. So that's kind of our recommended solution there, is that if you want to have a rich that's really hard to say, rich text editor in your user interface that you're building with AppScript, would be to go with HTML service instead.
I guess the issue I've encountered is that Kaha is very fussy, and so I'd love to see an actual worked example before investing dozens of hours to discover that Kaha strips out some essential piece of code.
Yeah.
Okay, that's totally a fair suggestion, and maybe that's something that we can actually look into, since there's multiple people who are looking to be able to do rich text editors. So we'll take a look at that and see if we can put something together. I also want to mention, if you run into issues with Kaha, I've found that the team that works on that, it's an open source project, but the team that works on it is very responsive. I've had a lot, I've raised some issues there myself, and I find that they jump on them pretty quickly. So we'll take a look at that and see if we can get an example of one of the many jQuery-based rich text editors working in HTML service.
Yeah.
And if we can, we'll update here, or I'll update. Maybe we'll add it as a tutorial or something like that.
Yeah, just as a note, if you're new to using the HTML service, Kaha is the project that sanitizes and makes sure that all the HTML that's being served is safe and not malicious, but sometimes it can be a little restrictive. And some libraries that you may pull out from the web, certain JavaScript libraries, it may not be compatible with them right now.
Yeah.
So definitely some more investigation to be done there.
Yeah, they definitely do support jQuery and jQuery UI, so if what you're using is just using kind of plain vanilla jQuery, you should be okay. But we'll try it out ourselves and see what we find.
Definitely. So I did get the chat open here. Unfortunately, since I wasn't in the Hangout at the time that the chat questions were asked, I don't see them. So you can either ask your question on chat again, or if you feel like reading it out loud, feel free. Oh, you have some typers here. Got a pretty full Hangout today, too.
We do, yes.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out. All right, so we got a question here from Andy. 200 megabytes ScriptDB is too small for Business Edition.
Okay. My question to you in that case would be, what size would you want? This is something you'll find us asking a lot with some of our quotas and limits, is if the limits that we have in place today don't work for your needs or for your use case, let us know. Ideally in the issue tracker, as in this case a feature request would be best. Let us know what amount you think you would need and what's the reasoning behind it. So it doesn't have to be your very specific business case, but like, what sorts of data are you storing? Why is this amount too small, and what amount would you need to see to have this be a viable solution for you? So we take that sort of feedback really seriously, and it helps us improve the product. So do open up something in the issue tracker for us on that.
Yeah.
And if anybody else has similar feelings towards it, chime in. We want to get the most representative set of use cases possible.
I think part of
it being a billable, he made a comment there, billable one. It might be interesting to see if it's possible to tie your scriptd database size to your drive size. And therefore, if you can do that, then by buying larger drive size, you can you can pay for the added storage.
That's an interesting idea as well.
It is, and something I was going to mention is that I think part of understanding ScriptDB and working around its limits is understanding what it's good at and what it's meant for, right? So if you're trying to store image data or binary data in ScriptDB, it's really more meant for JavaScript objects, kind of like records in a database. Large pieces of blob content are probably best stored in Drive using the docs_list API and things like that. I think if you're reaching 200 megabytes on just little pieces of script data, then that's a real case that we need to look at. But if you're trying to store files in ScriptDB, that's not really, I think, its sweet spot. And you may want to look at using Google Drive and the docs_list service for that.
Right.
And we had a question there from Marcus. How can you implement Gmail function on a web app?
So if you mean using the Gmail service, it should be possible. If you want to actually implement something that acts like the Gmail UI, I'm not sure we can answer that here.
It definitely takes a lot of manpower to create the Gmail UI, so
Yes.
It would not be easily replicated. But the basic tools for interacting with Gmail are there in the Gmail service, getting threads, sending emails.
Right.
So, and you can do that in any form of script, whether it be a web app or something that runs on a trigger.
Right. So one clarification to make: if you're trying to use the Gmail service in a web app, there will be a difference depending on how you publish it. There's two ways that you can publish web apps. We kind of alluded to this before. So when you go to deploy something as a web app, there's a selector that says run this, execute this as, and you can execute it as yourself, the developer. Probably not what you want to do in this case, because that would be your inbox. Or you can publish it so that it executes as the user who's accessing the app, and that is generally what you want to do in the case that you're using Gmail, because you probably want the user to be able to do something with their own Gmail inbox rather than yours.
Yeah.
So just something to keep in mind there.
Definitely. When creating a web app, always test it using a secondary account.
Right. Make sure it behaves as you expect.
Make sure it behaves how you expect, yeah. Andrew's got a question.
I had a runaway script last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I used I and twice as an iterator, and so it just went and it timed out. So that account that fortunately I had it on a demo account, so it threw the error, and I can't send any more email through that one account anymore until tomorrow.
Till tomorrow, yes.
Yeah, it's a good thing to demo things on or to have a development account to work on in case you blow your limit.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that is a great idea.
It looks like Andrew had another question here in chat. Do you want to ask it live too?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out in approaching the web app framework, given that most of my scripts at this point have been built as container-bound scripts, what are the exact limitations? Are there things that I just definitely can't do in a web app?
Yes. So one thing that a web app can't do that a spreadsheet bound script can do, since those are, I think, the ones that you're probably most familiar building. So in a spreadsheet bound script, you have this notion of active spreadsheet and active sheet, and there is not that automatic notion of an active spreadsheet in the case of a web app. So anytime you would be accessing, if you had spreadsheet data you wanted to access, you'd have to do open by ID and give the spreadsheet ID into the web app before you could then access ranges or anything like that. So that's one thing that is different. Another would be you can't do basically any of the spreadsheet specific things, so browser.message box or adding a menu to a spreadsheet because there's no spreadsheet. Things like that you can't do, but then there's a lot of things that it opens up to you that you wouldn't be able to do in a spreadsheet bound script. So.
Yeah, I think part of maybe how you can make the decision is thinking about what your script does. Is it primarily there to modify and operate on a spreadsheet, or is a spreadsheet either not part of the script at all, or maybe just an input to the script, and you'd want that to work on any number of spreadsheets, right? So if you have some sort of script that you may want to run on 100 different spreadsheets, rather than install it 100 times, you could create one web app that had a picker that allowed you to pick which spreadsheet you wanted to operate on at that moment, and then kick off the rest of the process from there. Right. So it's really, I guess, thinking about, is this primarily a spreadsheet experience, or is it primarily like maybe some other sort of standalone experience?
Yeah, and that's kind of how I think of it too. Is it meant to extend what a Google spreadsheet can do, or is it just the fact that when you created it in the past, all app scripts were spreadsheet bound scripts? So now that we have these standalone scripts, it's not necessary for all scripts to be bound to a spreadsheet or a Google site. They can be standalone, and you can publish them as a web app if that works for your use case.
And are there restrictions on things like storing user data in a web app? Like if I had ScriptDB running and I wanted to actually create a user table that had user-specific settings in it, are there any restrictions against that?
So there are not. One thing to note is with ScriptDB, regardless of how you publish your web app, whether you publish it to run as you, the developer, or as the user accessing it, there's only one DB for that script. So you have to do some work yourself to figure out how you want to silo that data, how you want to identify this is the data for this user versus this is the data for that user, and but that's just kind of up to the design of your program. You would want to structure it in such a way that you would be able to identify, these are the settings for this user versus that user. And since if you publish these web apps to run as the user, you'll be able to get the identity of the user, and so you can actually, key the data into ScriptDB that way. Hope that answers your question.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
I think we're just about out of time.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
It went by so quickly today.
It did.
All right, great. Well, I think unless there's, I don't see any more questions in the chat. We did get a thank you from Marcus, and wondering if we'll come to the Philippines anytime soon. It's not on my travel plans, but maybe we can work it in.
Well, I would love to. We'll see. We'll keep it on our list of possible future hackathon locations. We'll see what we can do.
All right, great. Well, thanks everyone again for coming today. If you have any questions we didn't get to, feel free to either add them on Stack Overflow, where the whole community can pitch in, or chuck them on the moderator, and we'll take a quick look at them after the broadcast.
Yep. And then we'll hopefully see some of you next week. And next week will be 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time next Thursday.
All right, great.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.